Okay. So before we do anything today, what we're going to do is we're going to glaze the background to push all of these trees back. So when we work on the main, the island with the trees and all of the rest, it will be ready. We can see it. Otherwise, the trees in the front will kind of be on the same level with the ones in the back if we don't glaze the one in the back. Anyway, glazing the trees in the back is good. Just to glaze, just for the, to know how to glaze. So I am going to glaze with white and ultramarine violet, and I'm making it more like a watery. You can use any glazing medium you like, but I'm using water. And because it's water, it's going to dry darker because it's watered down. It's going to dry darker. So I'm going to try to do this first and see if it looks good. And I think it looks fantastic. It's fine. And you see right away that it is lighter. It will dry darker. I'm not worried about that because it's transparent. When it's transparent, it dries darker. It might have a bit of water. I might have added a lot, too much water. That's why I'm going to do this. And then just go over it. Don't go over it too many times. And don't dig too hard. This is glaze. When you go over it too many times, it lifts. Sometimes what I do is I do this. I take and I dab a bit. And that will take away some of the water. But you can see the difference between this part and the right part and the left part. So if it's too much water, you find that it's too much water, just kind of dab your brush on a lint-free tissue. Very soft. And then let it dry. And this way, whole background is pushed back, but at the same time, we're still seeing all of the detail of the trees. The details of the trees are still there. So in between those trees, I can see the same. And I'll show you the background of the trees, what I mean. I'm going to take a little bit more, a bit thicker this time, not much. I still want to see the green. I don't want to see purple. I want to see a purple-green background. So I'm going to take a little bit more. And that's where glazing comes in handy because it's transparent. So if you put it over green, it will not cover the green, but it will make the green look a little bit more purple. So in between the trees, I need more. And what I'm going to do also, just a bit, leave it there, because I can always, if it's dry and it looks too purpley or too white, I can always put green over that and adjust it. But what I'm going to do is this part, I'm going to do the same. I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to go down. It's too much white. again. It's good. A little bit on this side. And actually, when you put water with your brush on your brush and you do this, it helps. It doesn't look too white. Now, if I find that the glaze is not enough, I wait for it to dry completely, and then I can go over this with another layer of glaze. And the more layers you put, the more you're going to see that it becoming lighter and lighter. But I think this is enough. We don't want to put too much. This is perfect, actually. Just pushing everything back, and we're going to put the trees over here from this part, from the island, and automatically this island will look in the front and all of this will look in the back. That's the best way to do this. Okay, now I'll give you a couple of minutes to do this, and then we'll move on to the trees here and then a bit of that reflection. All right, so now in between the trees, we're going to put the trees for in a minute, but before we put the trees, we're going to put some spacing in between. And I have here sap green, cadmium yellow light, yellow ochre, and burnt umber. So I'm going to take some sap green and cadmium, not cadmium, I'm sorry, yellow ochre, put it in my sap green, just make it a little bit more earthy. Now I'm going to add yellow. Okay. And I'm going to wipe my brush and come here, give a bit of that in between, that color, in between the trees. Okay, I'm going to put a tiny bit of water so it's not heavy. The paint is not heavy, it's more transparent. You know, transparency in water, that's the main thing. Okay, in between some of these trees, and then I'm gonna, you know, define them. Let's take a tiny bit of yellow ochre. Don't forget, we're gonna go over this later on with more horizontal lines. This is a nice thing about this. It's just those reflection of the trees and the light in between reflected in the water. And it doesn't really have to be perfect. I think I'm going to put a bit of yellow ochre in here. Let me see where I can spot these reflections or the light in between the trees. And I'm just going to put it there. I'm here at a point where I'm doing it kind of in random. It changes a bit on the other side. It's not so defined in here because we're going to go over this with more definition later on. Now, same. Now we're going to come to this side. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go like this. Yellow ochre, sap green, a little bit of water in here. And I'm going to go like this. Here too. Oh. Starting to work on, putting layers over this water. Okay. Now there's a part here that's really dark, and I like this. I like the contrast between the light and dark. So I don't want to lose it. I'm going to take sap green, burnt umber. And I'm going to give it a little bit of a couple of brush strokes down here. It makes this part glow because it's darker. Makes the part that is highlighted look a lot more, much more interesting. Okay. Let's keep this. So I am looking at what's behind the reflection of the sky. Reflection of the sky is going across this way, but what's behind it? It's darker color. So it's the color of the trees. And now I'm gonna let it dry for a minute, and then we'll come back. All right, let's work on the trees. So for the trees, I have burnt umber here. And I could just use burnt umber if I want with nothing else, but I'm going to make my burnt umber a little bit darker. So I'm going to take green, put it in. Wipe my brush. And just put some of these trees in there in the back. Maybe I should change my brush. You could, if you like, instead of leaving, you could work more like negative painting, but you put the trees and everything, and then you put the background, and you separate the trees by using the light color of the background. But this is positive painting. That's just kind of, I'm putting the trees on top. Just this, I used a white pencil crayon, and I'm just putting those trees on top. I'm painting the pencil crayon, painting over it. Now, some of them I'm not going to see now because they're against dark anyway. But once I start highlighting behind them, I'll see them more. And I am not following exactly the same what's in the reference. I'm just putting them kind of whatever I find. I see that they look nice. I like some of the positioning of these branches or trees in the reference, but I don't have to follow exactly the same. Okay, now in between where I highlighted the reflection, I'm going to do the same. But this time, I'm going to try to do this and see if it works. I'm going to put some water, a bit of water in here. And I'm going to take my brush and then going down, instead of going down straight, I'm going to kind of wiggle a bit my brush stroke. Let's see if I do this. I do it this way. We're going to go over these trees with a reflection, more reflection, so I wouldn't worry too much about the shape. But as long as they're not straight, let me see if I'm going to change my brush to round one. Maybe it's easier. Okay, put some water. Wipe my brush. Yeah, it's easier with a round brush. They don't have to be like too much of a wiggly. A little bit, as long as they're not too straight. Okay. Again. bit of yellow ochre in here. I see a bit of yellow ochre in the... It's not, you know, sometimes it's not because I'm copying, because whatever I'm looking at, if I like it, I'll enhance it. I'll show it a little bit more if I like what I'm seeing in there. So variation in the greens is nice. Not all the greens are the same. Oh, that's too light. Let's go back, darken a bit. I think it's too light. That's good. All right, let's come to this side. Take a little bit more of the yellow ochre and green. Okay. Actually, this should be darker. We will come back to this. Now, this is dry, and I'm finding that this is too light. So what I'm going to do is take a bit of green with yellow ochre, and I'm just going to go over it and just kind of tone it down. Bring that beautiful green back. I lost it with the glaze. That's better. Okay, a little bit here on this side. Okay, that's good. I'm looking at the shape of this part, and it looks good. Looks good. Okay. Let's work on these trees. The trees up there. Let's change my brush again to a bright. And take green. Put some yellow ochre in my green. Yellow, cadmium yellow light. I'm going to go mid-tone. So I'm not going to highlight too much, just enough. And I'm going to take more yellow ochre. And with the corner of my brush, too light. I don't want to jump from dark to light. This is too light. I'll go in between. This is going to dry darker. I always keep in mind that this is going to dry darker. And if it doesn't, I can always go back and adjust my value. But this is good. Now I'm trying not to lose my darks, you know, whatever I have. The original dark in there, I don't want to lose it because that is my depth, that gives me depth. Now in here, in this, there's a nice thing about this painting is that the bottom part is a little bit dark on this side. I don't want to lose this darkness because there's a light in here. And if I highlight this part, the left and right, exactly the same value like the middle, then I'm not going to have that beautiful light coming through in the middle. So I'm just going to keep an eye on my value in here. And if I find it's too much, now I'm adding a bit of burnt umber because it's a little bit too much. And if it's not enough and I need to darken, I will darken more. I think I'm going to darken a little bit more. Let's see if I use some of the ultramarine violet. Still not dark enough, so I might have to use a tiny bit of black in with my sap green. But first of all, let's continue. Okay. In between these trees, there's a little bit more sky and light. Again, I'm not trying to copy exactly what I see. It's just these little details are really nice, and I don't want to lose them. This is where you see more light. Less trees, more light. And we're going to do some negative painting in a minute, putting back the sky in. Now, this part right here has more sun. This is darker, this is lighter. So the more I come to this side, the more I'm going to have to put some lighter greens. But for now, this is medium tone. And again, I'm trying not to lose the depth. Dabbing, and while I'm dabbing, I am turning my brush around slowly to the left and to the right. Dab, turn your brush around. You'll see in a minute. Once I start putting the highlight, you'll see how this kind of technique of using the corner of your brush, dabbing and turning your brush around is going to be effective. Let's take some green yellow ochre, and then just give this part of the island a little bit more highlight, and take some of the yellow ochre and, no, I'm sorry, yellow ochre and, yeah, yellow ochre and brown. I'm gonna darken a bit here. I mean, it's acrylics. It's gonna dry darker anyway. A little bit darker, green, and sap green and burnt umber. This is darker in here. At this point, I'm going to take a bit of black, ivory black. And some sap green in it. And I'm going to come here, and I need like a silhouette. So I'm darkening this, dabbing this part, left part, with sap green and ivory black. I'm going to zoom in a bit. So I have darker in here, a section that's darker. It's actually darker on the canvas. It looks lighter in there, but it's dark in here. And I have a lighter part here on the right. So I'm going to continue. You know, if you mix, by the way, ivory black and cadmium yellow light, you will get a nice green. So I'm going to use that. I'm going to take advantage of this and mix these two together. And I'm going to add some of the green in here. This mixture of sap green and ivory black. Darken a bit in here. there's a beautiful light coming in between here. So I'm going to keep that. And I'm going to darken a little bit around it, right here. The reason I'm doing this, I darken a bit because then I can see the light more. Like when I put a highlight in here, it will pop. If the surrounding of the highlight is light, then it'll be fine, but it won't show the same way. Okay. I'm going to clean up anything in here that's needs to be cleaned up. I'm going to do it right now. Reflection. Let's put some brown in here with a little bit of yellow ochre. Some green and black. Let's take a tiny bit of yellow and put it in that, put it in any green you have in there. Tiny bit of yellow with the corner of my brush. I'm just going to do this. Not much, just kind of dab. I can see a combination of different greens. Some greens will have brown in here. That's my burnt umber and green. Some greens will have, let's put a bit of yellow ochre. And some greens will have more of the yellow in there, in it. So this is kind of, this green is sap green, yellow ochre, burnt umber. So a variety of greens is really, really nice. Okay, I'm going to take the same thing. This is yellow ochre. I haven't cleaned my brush. I don't need to clean it. Yellow ochre, just a bit of yellow ochre. And I'm going to put a strong high. Oh, that's too strong. Whoops. Let's take a tiny bit of yellow, put it in here. So this yellow has, again, has some black in it, some green. Let's take a bit of yellow ochre in there again. It's drying darker, so I'm just looking at what I have, and I'm just adjusting my colors. That's too strong. Let's darken this a bit with greens, dry brush. Now, same thing, just kind of yellow ochre in my green and brown or black, whatever you have. And I'm going to do this reflection of that this highlighted part. Just go down. Okay, on it. Awesome. Now, let's go up to this side. Do you want me to stop a bit for a minute? Or you're okay? Everybody's okay?
Yeah, okay.
You're good? Okay. Sap green, cadmium yellow light, yellow ochre. I'm going to try to highlight a bit stronger, putting a bit of more stronger highlights in here. With the corner of my brush. I'm not following exactly what's happening in there. In the, I'm just putting, that needs a bit of more yellow ochre. I'm just putting highlights. There's a big tree on an angle here. So I'm going to try to put it in there using negative painting. Just show a tiny bit of that tree trunk. It's got a little bit more of the highlight, which is yellow, and it's yellow and green. And I'm going to put this with yellow ochre. So I'm highlighting a little bit more. Still using the corner of my brush. And my paint is fluid. It's kind of a fluidy. It's not heavy. So it's like a glaze. And I'll show you in a minute what we're going to do. We're going to open up these trees with the color of the sky using a negative painting. So we'll just make everything look less heavy. This is more like a glaze. So it's not heavy paint, it's glaze. Okay, more glaze. My glaze is green, so it could be. I think it's I mixed sap green and black. I'm sorry, black and yellow, and I'm using it as a glaze. So layers. Okay, that's good enough for now. If I need to go back to putting more, I will do that, but I doubt I need to do that. Now, one more thing I'm going to do, and that's take some of that same glaze off the trees that I was using. Let me add a little bit of yellow and yellow ochre. And just kind of go in here and kind of glaze a bit, some of the screen again, keeping in mind that some areas I want to keep dark. So if I go over that area too much, if I glaze too much and I lose that dark that I want, I can go back to it using just sap green and black. And that's good. Very, very good. I'm going to pause for a minute. Okay, I'm going to add a tiny bit more of those trees, bring them out a bit. I mean, in the reference, they lean forward. There's like a couple of branches that are leaning forward out of the main island. But I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to add a couple that are right here and just push them out a bit. Whoa, wow, that's strong. Although it's a glaze, it will dry darker. I'm enhancing the color of the trees, the highlight of the trees using yellow with my green. And it is a glaze. It's not heavy. Let's put some water in here. Now, adding highlights. Okay. Right. A switch. I'm switching to a round brush. I have here the color of the sky again, which is, I think, it doesn't have to be exactly the same. It is, I'm using cerulean blue white and ultramarine violet. It shouldn't look too bright. And I'm using a round brush. All right, let's open up the sky a bit. Now there's an opening right here. So this is what I'm going to put, where I'm going to put the sky. This is where the branch is. So I have to make sure I don't put the sky over the branch. It doesn't have to look exactly the same like in the picture. So, and we have to keep in mind that there are trees in the back. So I shouldn't go with my sky over the trees in the background. So the sky color should be more up high. I'll go back and put some greens if I need to. This is negative painting. Here. Now, this part is a bit too much. I opened it up a little bit too much. No problem. I'm going to take some green, sap green. Maybe put a black in my sap green a bit. And yellow, ochre. More like an earthy green. And close up some of these. Actually, I lost the background where I have the dark. I have the trees in the back. In the background. Okay, now let's take some. I'm going to take a bit of black. I really don't have to worry about the black at this point. If I take a bit of ivory black with on my round brush and just put these trees back on. This ivory black is not heavy. It's not like it's going to take over. It's just going to enhance the color of the trees. The trees are far, so I really don't have room to mix two colors together for the tree trunks. So if I put black, it's not a big deal. If I use black in here. Again, there are some nice trees in here. Interesting. See, it's like a glaze. It's not heavy black, so it's not like you're using gesso. This is ivory black. Right. Take a bit of yellow ochre and burnt umber, mix them together. More on the yellow ochre than burnt umber. And what I'm going to do is going to be my first layer for this path. It's going to dry darker, which will give me, allow me to highlight it a bit after. Let's bring some of it here and here too. Now, this doesn't end here. This brown yellow, it keeps going, but it changes a bit in this section here. It becomes more dispersed, not as heavy. And we will be using green after again with this. Now this is more like a dry brush. Whatever is left over on my brush, I'm just putting some color. Just like a path. All right, so this is the first layer of the path. It's darker here. It just looks lighter on the screen, but it's darker here. Now, I'm going to highlight it. So I'm going to take, again, more yellow ochre, put it in the same mixture that has burnt umber in it. And I'm going to take a tiny, 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 tiny bit of white, really very small amount, and make my color transparent, kind of. And then I'm going to come here. Now, in the reference, there's a little bit of a hint of red in there. So using tiny bit of maybe burnt sienna will be a good idea. But for now, I'm just going to add this color. So this color, which is yellow ochre, burnt umber, and a tiny bit of white, and it's more like a glaze, is going to allow me to see where the strong light is. It will define this kind of beautiful path behind the trees. And then after, if I want, I can tone it down with a bit of burnt sienna. tip of my brush, I'm just kind of skimming over those little highlights in here. This is whatever is left over on my brush. I think a tiny bit of burnt sienna will look really good in here, or orange, but burnt sienna would be better. Any burnt sienna. That little bit of red in my yellow, that warm red is going to make a big difference. Put burnt sienna, yellow ochre, a little bit of white. Don't put too much white. If you want to highlight your burnt sienna at this point, maybe put yellow or yellow ochre, because white is going to turn it into pink. Oh, that's perfect. This is perfect. It's earthy, it's perfect. Okay, again, it's way too light in the on the monitor, so I'm going, and it's light here too. I lost some of the darks, so I'm adding a bit of burnt umber to my burnt sienna in here, just to tone it down. I'm going to introduce a hint of green by adding just green to my burnt sienna. Okay. It's good. I think this part is a little bit too much highlight, so I'm just going to take green, sap green, add it to my burnt sienna that I'm using. Just sap green and burnt sienna. More of the sap green than burnt sienna, actually. Go back, darken this a little bit with the greens. There's a tree in here in the reference. I'm not putting it. I'm not putting a tree. I'm going to put a hint of highlights in here using green and burnt sienna or yellow ochre. There. While I'm doing this, I'm going to take some of this yellow ochre, I mean sap green, sorry, sap green, burnt sienna, and just bring down reflections down here. The more colors in your reflection, the nicer it looks. Okay. Okay, now I lost some of the trees in here, so I'm going to put them back in the reflection. Same thing. Sap green, burnt sienna. Maybe a little bit of yellow ochre, just to give it a bit of highlight. I mean, a bit of color. All right, let's do this. Perfect. That's beautiful. Okay. Trying to get the same shape in the reflection as the upper part. And a little bit. Again, I am not doing this because I want to follow exactly what's happening in the reference. I'm doing this because I like it. I think it adds to the overall beautiful background of this reference. We're going to be putting more of the light color of the sky. So at this point, I can take yellow ochre, bit of brown with my yellow ochre, and I can do this. All right, needs a bit of highlights, a little bit of white. Perfect. Round brush, water, so watery color, paint. Not the paint has to be like a glaze. Or any brush that will give you this effect. It doesn't have to be round. Whatever you feel comfortable with. Same on this side. It's much easier to do this when your color or your paint is watery. Otherwise, the paint will blob. It is acrylic. It's not oil. If you're not comfortable doing this, put masking tape to get a straight line. Masking tape, ruler, whatever it takes to make it easier. I think I need a ruler for this too. I'm going to stop in a minute. This is not, this is enough for today. We did a lot. So I'm taking just yellow ochre and a bit of white and a touch of the burnt sienna. And I'm going to highlight this. And then I'm going to let it go. Let it be and not play with this anymore. I'm going to bring this tree down to this side. Gives it depth. A nice way of giving it a bit of depth. Okay, so for the reflection, I redid the reflection. I have a T-square that I use for stuff like this for paint, and it helps. So I am doing another reflection. I removed the first one, and I'm going to take a T-square. And with the T-square, I'll show you. It's like a glaze of green. It's a combination of yellow ochre, brown, burnt umber, and a bit of green and white. And what I'm going to do, and it's a glaze, so it's not heavy paint. Perfect. That's like the perfect straight line. I'm going to put a tiny bit more on this side. Maybe a little bit thicker or even wider, a little bit wider. But it's so much easier with using a ruler. There. This is where we're at this week. Next week, we will continue.